Hey everybody, my name is Dane Sanders and I want to welcome you to Fast Track Coaching. We are in episode 186, I think, 185 or 186, and we've been doing this for a long time. If you're new to the show, let me give you a little context. We get together about once a week, and I'm privileged enough to have some really amazing conversations with some industry leaders, inside photography and beyond. And when that happens, I realized a long time ago that I was being pretty selfish, that I was the only guy that got to enjoy these conversations. So I dreamt up the idea of just turning the camera on and inviting you all into it. And you have been showing up steadily for a long time. And today's no exception. The goal is not to change the world. The goal is for you to get a nugget or two, and then for you to turn your computer off, or at least the video part of it, the entertainment part, and get to work and use these in some way to promote and push your creativity and your business forward. And today's guest is an incredible gift for you, I think. Certainly it's for me. Andrew Funderburg, you might know him from a lot of different angles. People have gotten to know Fundy from, they might have seen the software or tried it. They might have heard about it from another photographer like Ghionis or Tamara Lackey, both dear friends who've been on this show in the past. But what he provides are implementation tools that are pretty connected to felt need. If you want to build an album, if you want to do a blog collage, if you want to brand your images, if you want to, the list goes on and on and on of functions that he serves. But he's also a photographer by trade, and he's a great guy. And another common friend of ours, Jim Garner, introduced me to him a while back, and I realized as soon as I met him, he had to be on Fast Track Coaching. So Andrew Funderburg, thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Cool, man. Well, for those of you who are at home and you don't know the human behind Fundy Software, and that's fundysoftware.com. If you're playing along at home, you can jump on and open another window and check that out. Andrew, give us a little bit of a context for your journey to get to where you are today.
Well, how far back do we want to go?
Well, yeah, I was born a poor black man. That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I guess there's two kind of lanes here that I'm really curious around. One is you're on the craft and art of photography side, because I know you've been in and out and back in with photography.
Yeah.
And then even on the software side, kind of how did you find yourself in this position where, I mean, you have thousands and thousands of photographers all over the world who depend on your software in their workflow week to week.
We actually found that out recently when one of our online programs broke. How many people depend on our software. Luckily, we were able to fix it in a fairly timely manner.
Well, good, yeah. And even that, your reputation precedes you. I mean, it just seems like everywhere I go and I talk to folks, there's just an increasing roar in the crowd of, man, this stuff is just really helpful for me. And I guess that's where I'm thinking about the history. I'm guessing there's two tracks of you as a photographer and you as a software guy. But talk a little bit about what got you here.
Yeah, well, going back a little bit, after college I was in the Peace Corps. I taught English in the Peace Corps. And then after that, the economy was in a downturn, kind of like it is now. And I had a friend in Japan who was teaching English. So I ended up going to Japan and ended up living in Japan for 13 years. And my wife's Japanese. My kids were born in Japan. And when my kids were born, I started, much like anyone else, I started getting into photography. I did a little black and white photography in college, and started doing some family portraits. And I had a student whose high school friend owned a studio. So I started second shooting for them, weddings. And then through shooting another wedding, at a restaurant. A lot of weddings take place at restaurants in Japan because space is so limited. There were 3 Iron Chef restaurants, and the person in charge of coordinating the weddings asked if I could shoot there. So I ended up contracting at 3 Iron Chef restaurants in Japan. So as you know, shooting weddings, especially when you're first getting started, is extremely stressful.
It is.
So I was doing all of that in a second language, and so that was pretty stressful too. And so I would get I'm fairly fluent in Japanese, but I would get the timeline of the events all in Japanese. So I'd have to sit down with my wife and make sure and jot notes and stuff and see what's going on. And so that's how I got into photography, wedding photography.
Wow.
And what happened was when I was shooting weddings in Japan are they're very they're very quick. Average wedding is 4 hours.
Wow.
And so some days you'd have 2 weddings in a row. You'd have your afternoon, your noon wedding, and then your evening wedding, and have dinner in the middle. And I remember one weekend I had 3 weddings in one weekend, and I also owned an English school, so I was juggling 2 businesses, and I had to design albums for all these weddings, and something struck a chord where the album design software, and then I started looking at image software also, image plugins and whatnot. Everything at that point in our industry, and other than Lightroom is still somewhat the case, most tools for photographers are focused on designing one spread or editing one image.
Right.
In Lightroom. And I was like, well, I need to design like 120 spreads for 3 different albums in a couple hours.
Right. Right.
So that was the impetus of getting started in the software company. So my deep knowledge of teaching English and shooting weddings is what got me into the software company.
Well, I mean, that idea that, necessity breeds invention is fantastic, especially because you're building the software from a practitioner's mindset and not just kind of a purely entrepreneurial pursuit to take, to leverage a market. It sounds like you're a little bit of an unlikely hero. I built this for myself and it works and other people want to use it and they're benefiting from it. But they're not just benefiting. I mean, it's funny you say that oh, by the way, and if you're listening at home, I did talk to Andrew in advance of this. We're going to give you guys a hookup if you want to take advantage of his software. So don't buy yet. Buy it in a minute, but you will. And if you're nervous about it, the code is Sanders August 20, and we'll get you that information again at the end of the show. But that's the promo code, and that'll get you 20% off. But I've heard rumors of people being able to design an entire album in like 8 minutes, or is that like 8-minute abs kind of thing? Like it's a bit of a stretch to say that. What's the real deal?
So we've I can't remember what, I think it was in April or May, we came out with the new auto design feature, and it's not
so full on. So I select a bunch of images in Bridge and I hit one button and it goes.
No.
Okay.
No. Basically, because you're designing spread by spread. I'm still automation is great, but robots are bad.
I agree.
Right. So the automation has 2 drop downs, and within those 2 drop downs, you have about 5 different choices, 6 different choices, and based on those choices, Album Builder will auto design.
Wow.
A spread for you. So user input. It's kind of like shooting on aperture priority with overriding your exposure control, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like that, right? It's not full auto, but it's auto enough that you can do your job without having to get out your light meter and do everything.
I like that a lot. I mean, I think that there's a degree to which putting a signature on a design, but without having to do the parts that machines can do better once you tell the machine what to do.
Yeah. Basically, you get to do the fun part, and the software gets to do the grunt work. Making sure everything's lined up and all the images fit together and all that.
Got it.
But getting back to the 10 minutes, most people who get started with it can easily design a 40-page album in under 20 minutes.
Wow.
But some longtime users, we have a little joke, the 10-minute club, who can get under 10 minutes.
Nice.
And it's not as hard as you would think. It's pretty easy to go 8 or 9 minutes.
So let's say I got album design 4 for the first time today. And I'm a little slow on the uptake. So let's say it took me half an hour, 45 minutes for the first one. Mm-hmm. How many albums am I away from being able to get into the 10-minute club?
Depends on how dedicated you are, but if you're dedicated, probably 5.
Wow.
Or 5. Yeah. Like once you get the hang of it, it's pretty fast.
Got it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really appreciate about what you do, Andrew, is on your site, there's a number of very interesting instructional videos. Like I've been on your email list for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And I remember I'll see a thing and I'll see a feature set and I'll be like, oh, I think I know what that means. But then when I watch the video, I'm like, oh, that's a lot easier than I thought it was. And it's amazing to me how really consistently you deliver on your promises with that. And the videos seem to be really instrumental. Have you gotten a lot of positive feedback on that?
Yeah, people love the videos, and getting back to it, because we talked a lot about business also, is that one of our core values at our company is trust. It's truth, 100%, wide open, and that's just and all of our employees, and that's it has to be that way.
Yeah.
And I don't see how any company cannot.
Well, especially now.
Yeah, everybody knows.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's back up a little bit, because there's so much to talk about here. Even I didn't quite register, given our conversation in the past, your Japanese background and even some of your Zen aesthetic. It's getting all this explanatory power is kicking in. And you actually remind me quite a bit. There's a guy who we've had on the show who I'm a big fan of, a guy named Chris Guillebeau, who do you know who Chris is? Yeah,
Chris actually lives in Portland. We've never met before.
Oh, well, you guys have to meet. You guys have such convergent paths. I mean, it's amazing. But he, great guy in person, and of course in his writing and all that he does. And he is what you see. What you see is what you get. He's a WYSIWYG guy. But one of the things I really appreciated about him is he's very. He logs some time in the Peace Corps or a version of that, and overseas for extended periods of time. And he's a very kind of minimalistic aesthetic as well, and he tends to be artistic, radically artistic, but incredibly pragmatic. Like he doesn't just do art for art's sake. He's smart enough to create, but then put it in a package that makes it really easy for people who want to participate. And it seems like you've done that really consistently too. How do you hold the tension of this serial entrepreneur approach? I mean, you've owned language schools, you're hanging out with Iron Chefs. Like, there's so many cool things you've done, and you're a blue collar photographer too. I'm looking behind you at your walls. You shoot portraits and then some. And there you go. And that's not a green screen, people. That's actually his screens. So talk a little bit about the tension you hold. And by the way, I'm curious about this on a personal level because I'm someone who historically, I was at a full-time job and did photography on the side. Then I started writing, and all of a sudden I got overwhelmed with the educational side and was almost doing exclusive education and no shooting. And then the last year and a half I've been pulled way back, and now I'm doing way more shooting than education. And it is just rough to do all these things simultaneously.
It is.
How do you hold those two together?
For a while, I couldn't. I basically stopped shooting for probably a year and a half, 2 years. Just a little bit, here and there. But I mean, the real key was getting good employees in place where we needed them to be in place.
So you're not just, it's not, even though it's Fundy Software and your name's Andrew Funderburg, you're not a one-man band?
No. But we had a talk with employees where there was somebody didn't get a good support experience, and back in the day, everybody says that pardon my French, but shit rolls downhill. It rolls uphill now. Got it. Right. Something goes wrong, it comes back. But right. So we try to make sure we communicate our core values, but we have full-time support person, 2 full-time developers, office staff, and a full-time marketing person. So that has helped me a lot. But that said, it's still mentally it's tough to shift gears. Yeah. As you know, it's mentally tough to shift gears between software and shooting and everything. But I think I just get bored doing the same thing all the time. I think that's it. It's and that's one of my core values is I'm sure you've heard the Toyota's Kaizen principle, constant improvement. Yeah. Just constantly getting better and constantly improving. Yeah. So that's one thing we work at with our products, but then also personally, I'm always trying to constantly improve and constantly do things and constantly put myself in situations where I'm doing something I'm not good at.
Yeah, it's funny. There's so much that's ringing in my ear as you're talking. One is I'm in a lot of conversations with photographers and I know you have been too over the years, and I understand the felt need of people will come with a question and they're not really looking to learn, they're just looking for the answer. Like, just tell me what the right thing is to do.
Yeah.
And there's nuance to what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, Andrew, in that even though people might be looking for the answer, when you describe the answer for you or I describe the answer for me, it's not that there aren't universal truths in those answers, but they're contextualized to you and to me and to them in such a way that because I had written down on my little list here of things I wanted to ask you. Is it viable to do both, like software and education and shooting or whatever? But some of your answers already in play. You said, well, for me, and this is you, it sounds like you have a little ADD built in. You have a lot of creativity. You find yourself flourishing when you throw yourself into tasks that are bigger than you, and you're learning on the fly, and you're willing to do that. There's kind of a risk, a comfort with risk that you seem to be, and you also have a track record, like a life resume, where as you've done this, you've learned some skills on how to negotiate that. But someone who's asking you questions like, is it viable to do all of it? My guess is the answer is well, it depends on you. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm, in some levels, I'm a big believer in the human spirit. I think if somebody wants to do something badly enough, no matter where you come from, what your background, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And there's, there are a ton of big examples. Like I forget his name, the gentleman from South Africa with, missing half of his legs. It's running the Olympics.
Right.
There's, the millions and millions of famous examples, but there's millions of unsung heroes out there.
Yeah.
But that said, there are a lot of people that want to do something, but there are very few people that are willing to put in the work and effort to actually realize those goals.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter where you come from or how much money you have in your back pocket. It's hard work. Yeah. And we started, for our company, our corporate seed money was $2,000 in savings that I had. That was our startup money. So you don't need a lot of money, and you don't need you just need some gumption and being stupid enough to think that you can do that.
Well, it's fun. There's so much in what you're saying. Like, it's obviously the Olympics are rolling right now, and it's fun to watch. Just at the time of this tape of the interview, Michael Phelps yesterday got his final medal, apparently. 18 gold, 2 silver, 2 bronze. That's an impossible task. No one has ever done that in history. But then someone just did it. Or even the great Nike ads that are run. I love the Olympics because these fantastic ads come up. But that greatness commercial where greatness is overwhelming and it's daunting, whatever, until it isn't. And it shows this kid on the top of the thing and he just jumps. And for him, great is just taking the leap. And I just think those messages are so palpable and powerful. But I also want to follow up on your thing when you said that people want to do things. Do you think they really want to if they aren't doing it, or is that just a gesture?
Well,
are they tricking themselves when they say they want to, but there's no proof to show for it?
Well, I think the key is that some people that succeed are people that want to do the hard work, and people that don't succeed are the people who just want the end result. Like, oh, I want to have a photo studio.
Yeah.
Right? Well, me too. I want $1 million. I don't have $1 million, And, I think...
So I guess the follow-up question to that is, if someone's at home and they're listening to this and they're sweating a little bit because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm that guy or I'm that girl, and I do want the end result, but I don't even know what the work is required, but I think I want to go for it. What kind of input do you give? And I know you're in these kinds of conversations all the time with people. What do you say to someone who's just, they're scared, but they want to go?
And well, the first thing is, I've been scared too. When we moved back to Japan, we sold everything we owned. And we were a little stupid, and we put 80% of all of that money into a house. So we had a little bit of savings, but the plan was to come back. I was going to get a job for a while, do something. I could not get a job. I just could not get a job, and we were scared. I thought we were going to lose our house and the whole deal. And, have to move in with my parents for a while, and then my wife would kill me. Then she would end up in prison, and then the kids would be orphans.
Don't get cable.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think being scared is good. Being scared of failure is key. Every month, every month at the beginning of the month we start at zero. We got to make enough money to make payroll and rent, and being scared every month is good. But I think the key is setting out. I just actually wrote up a PDF about this. Setting out a yearly marketing plan based on every month. Setting out every week of every month what you're going to be doing, and then setting out every day what you're going to be doing, and getting that balance between processing your images, blogging, going out and meeting people, marketing, all of that stuff. So I think breaking it down, and then once you have it broken down and you know what you need to do, you just, to quote Nike, you just do it.
Yeah.
One thing.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is there a third step, like where you kind of see if you did it? Like where you look and just kind of measure actual results?
Oh, there's I forget his name, the CEO of GoDaddy.
Yeah.
.com. He has his 10 his 10 golden truths of business or something like that. He has this list. Everybody has a list, but one of his keys, and actually this has been proven through Harvard Business School, is that things that are watched improve. Things that are not watched don't improve. So track your income.
Yeah.
So I have a spreadsheet. End of every month, I track our income and our expenses. Just rough. I don't get detailed. You don't want to get lost in the details, but I have global income. Which products are selling best, and then major expenses, and just track it. And then I use Excel, so it has a nice little graph. And so the plan is that graph is going up all the time. Well, not all the time. It's a mountain range, but
yeah,
here it's up.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the tools that you've created. And by the way, that insight at the end of breaking it down, making a plan, doing it, and then seeing if you did it, kind of week to week, month to month, year to year, quarter to quarter, whatever your metrics are. I think if people just did that this week, I guarantee a shift for people at home.
Yeah. For example, just if you're a portrait shooter, just write on a big, if you go to Home or Office Depot, they have those big giant sticky notes,
Right.
You put one on the wall, and then each month write down how many portraits you want to do. I want to do 10 portraits in August or 20 portraits in August, and then, that's your goal. And then if you get those portraits, most likely you're going to hit your income goals.
Right. Well, that idea of chunking it down, I mean, we did this one thing once. I did a video deal talked about chunking, and basically that was it. It was like, okay, so you say you want to make an extra $50,000 this year, and if that number sounds crazy, well, let's just say that's what it is. Or and you just chunk it down. Well, what's your average is per unit? That means how many people do you have to get? Well, then how many phone calls do you need to get a lead? Because how many leads do you need to get a client? And you just chunk it all the way down. And they're like, oh, okay, so I need to make 3 calls today. It's really what it comes to. If you can chunk it down to an actionable task, and you keep putting one foot in front of the other with the tasks, your likelihood, it's not a guarantee, but your likelihood just goes through the roof.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Compared to not at all. So, okay, that's really helpful. So, but in that, I've noticed, as I've looked at your tool set that you've created for people, especially as a practitioner, they strike me as uniquely relevant, like somebody was building it for themselves and just happened to turn it around and give it to everybody else.
Yes. Well, yes and no. I built them based around how my own workflow, but with the intent to
share
them.
No, that I get,
Yeah.
but it seems like consistently the feature set is adjusting relative to my own needs. Like I really love the blog collage that you
Yeah.
have, and the fully automated deal. You know, select them bridge, hit go, everything goes. If I don't like it, hit go again, it goes in a new way.
It's pretty fun, huh?
That's pretty slick. Or if I want to go kind of semi-automatic and run it myself, that's really cool. All those things are really, really cool. But it seems like you've been paying really close attention to the evolution of what's wanted and needed in our current state as a photography industry, especially for portraits and for weddings. So given that, talk a little bit about. And by the way, Andrew didn't ask for me to do this, but I want to do this so you guys have a sense of this. Because I think you have about 6 major tools that people can leverage. Talk a little bit about those 6 tools so that we can all have a context for them.
Okay. Well, one tool that's easy to talk about in the beginning is Image Finder because it's free.
Okay.
It's 100% free, so there's no sales pitch there.
Okay.
And the reason we made it free was because it took us about 10 days to build it. And so we're like, well, let's just make it free. It's great. Create some love for our company from our customers. But how many times have you received by email or a shopping cart a list of images that you need to go find on your computer?
Yeah, like every wedding.
Yeah, right. And so if somebody sends you a list of 80 or 100 images that they want in their album, how long does it take you to find all those?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. It's probably one of those. Honestly, it's probably one of those tasks that I would normally just go, well, it won't take me that long.
Yeah.
But if you were to add it up, over X amount of weddings.
10 or 15 minutes, right?
Right.
So we just made a tool where you just copy out that list of images, you just paste it in Image Finder, say, oh, the images are in this folder, and then you click a button and it copies all those images into another folder for you.
That's great. Doesn't move them, it copies them.
It copies them, yeah.
That's great.
So
how do people get a hold of that Image Finder thingy?
Oh, just go to fundysoftware.com and there's a big old banner right on the front of the page saying Image Finder's free. Click here.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so that's Image Finder. What's next?
Well, the main product is Album Builder, and I talked a little bit about the concept of Album Builder and speeding up things, but the main thing I noticed, and it's still true today for all of our competitors, is all album design software is based on putting your images into someone else's design. So you're molding your images to fit a design.
Right.
And from the beginning, we thought, well, that just doesn't make sense.
Right.
So from the very beginning, even Album Builder version 1, which was extremely crude, the whole concept was design based on your images. So the design wraps around your images. The design molds itself based on your needs. And so that's the main concept. And so, for example, the auto design feature, you select 8 images in bridge. You put the first one, the main images you want, up top, and then you can say, oh, that main image, I want it full bleed on one side, or I want it to bleed across into the next page, or I want it with some white space around the edge. And then you click a button and it puts that main image where you want it, and then the accent images are auto-designed on the other side to fit in.
Oh, I love that. So it kind of builds and layers up from what you want to accomplish. Very cool.
So you're able to, get the basic design structure that you want, but not have to the tedium of either looking for a template that fits those 8 images, or trying to line those up by yourself manually.
Got it. So what if someone's at home and they're like, okay, I have no design aesthetic. I think I know compositionally per image, but I can't imagine a spread properly, or I'm nervous about it, or I look at Jerry Ghionis' albums and I go, well, I can't pull that off, even though he pulled that off in your program. How is it that is there an option for someone to go, okay, it's not ideal to build design centric, or for the design to be primary. Yeah. But if they have no idea to go which image should be primary and how do we layer up, and I'm just trying to think from the perspective of people listening, what do they have as an option?
Well, the auto design,
the full auto will take care of that.
Auto design, you can just click a button; it'll design the whole spread for you.
Do you find that some people choose that as kind of a first draft and then they kind of tinker?
Well, and the thing is I design albums too. Sometimes a lot of times local. I don't shoot weddings anymore, just because it's mentally too much,
right.
Physically too much on the weekends. But I have a lot of photography friends in town, and especially when we're testing some new features or something, have them shoot me a wedding and I'll design the album for them. and kick it back to them. And a lot of times, probably about 2/3 of the spreads, I'm saying, oh, this is definitely the main image. But the other 1/3, especially formals and bridal party shots, know what they should be, what's better. I just hit the full auto. If it looks good, go on. If it doesn't, clear the spread and hit full auto again. But choosing a main image, I think anybody can do.
Yeah.
For example,
I love that, because you're inviting people to stretch, because they're having limiting conversations with themselves of what they think they can do, and you're saying, like, look, just try it.
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as it thinks. For example, you have 10 shots of the bride getting ready. There's got to be one shot you like the best. That's your main image.
Pick it. Right.
It's just like, which one do you like the best, or which one do you think is most striking?
Yeah, I love it. Have you ever done like a contest where you're like, no, because sometimes I think the videos are so slick. I'm like, dude, this feels. My friend Julieanne Kost, who works for Adobe, they have all these kind of preset images that they do their demos on, and sometimes I'm like, it's just not fair. I mean, really, like that was the perfect image for that application and how you did it. Yeah. Have you ever done a little like live deal where you're like, okay, give me 150 images and watch my program go to work?
I have once, actually, at a couple years ago I spoke at Mystic. And I had someone give me 100 images, and I just designed an album on the fly.
Wow. And were people just jaw dropped?
It was great, because it was like, oh wait, that doesn't look good. I was going back and forth, but
so it's real. Oh, that's helpful. That's real.
So it was real. But we were still able to design a full album in 25 minutes.
Cool. Well, the other tools that I really paid a lot of attention to are on the marketing side. So talk a little bit about like the blog collage and some of the other, Image Brander and that sort of thing.
So Image Brander is, at its core, it's just a watermarking tool. It's a way to brand your images. And I get all this asked all the time. It's like, well, I can put my logo on in Lightroom, and you can. And if that's what you need, that's great. Yeah. Image Brander is just extremely flexible. You can put logos and color bars. You can add file names. So I had the file name, right on top of the image for proofing clients, because it makes it. They don't have to go, try to, what's the name of this file? It's right there on the image. And nobody wants to print 8x10 with the file name and a color.
Right on.
Not going to look good.
Yeah, and that's all cropped. It's all
a star or something to get everything out.
Right.
So Image Brander it's definitely one of our top sellers. People really like it because it's so flexible, and it's easy to put some pretty serious marking and branding on your images. And one thing I tell people, one thing that people don't realize, is that a lot of people think of watermarking as just a way to protect your images, right? I'm just protecting my images from being printed.
Which is the total wrong message you want to give, it seems to me. It seems to communicate, I don't trust you.
Yeah, which is, and that is what it is, but I feel like watermarking to protect printing is only maybe 10% of the importance of branding.
I totally agree. The
main thing is like, well, I'm trying to keep people from, stealing my images or sharing them or putting them on their phone. I'm like, no, that you want people to steal your images, you want them to put on their phone, you want them to post your images to Facebook. It's just that you want your branding on those images while they're doing it.
That's right. It's funny you say that, and I think things are shifting a little bit, especially if the branding is done well. It's not cheesy. I had a client I just delivered. She did her thank you cards after her wedding, and I did them for her through White House, and they the cards came back, and she actually requested. She said, would you please put I like your little red box and name, kind of whatever. And I'm not going to like blast it because she's paying for the card, but I just very subtly in the back, underneath the final image on this little fold out card. And it actually added a level of value for the client without being like, phone number and email and address. Like none of that. It was just a mark,
And that's all you really need,
Because people will find you if they like you.
If they like the image, they'll find you.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so talk about the other pieces.
So Image Brander, blog collage. Blog collage is, and I love the auto collage. I use it all the time. I use it when we do like reviews of album companies and whatever on our site. We'll do the same thing. We'll take some product shots and then we'll just blog collage them and throw them up.
That's great.
But I think one thing is that for people that have trouble blogging, and I've heard this a lot, and I didn't really think about it because I love blogging. We do
right. Second nature, right?
But people that have trouble, it's an easy way to grab images, hit auto, build a blog collage, and write 2 sentences and make a blog post.
Right.
Actually, Alicia Brooke Todd actually started using it, and they haven't blogged forever. And she's like, "I'm blogging again, thank you."
I love those two. That's so great. I can totally hear her voice when you say that. And she's genuinely thankful. That's great.
But one of the key things is more subtle too. With when you're doing blog collages and blogging, you're telling stories.
Right. There's a progression.
And it gets the client thinking of their images in a storytelling manner, which means that the chances of them ordering an album from you is going up.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for, the bottom line. I mean, business is business, you got to make money.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I'm curious, when people do the blog collage, do they tend to do like one big long image? Because that can be a long, thin deal, or do they tend to split it up?
You need to split it up, because what people don't realize that you're saving out a JPEG.
Right. So it'll take forever to load.
So people send in support. Well, this is loading really slow, and so we go in there, and the image is, we go in, the image is 6,000 pixels long. Well, 6,000 pixels is a 10-inch print at 300 dpi.
Right.
Even save for web, it's going to be big. So about every 5 rows you want to save out. Usually, I'll do maximum 5 rows, because I'm a big fan of not showing too many images before the order.
Right.
Want to do more, do 5 rows, save out, do 5.
Whet the appetite, right. So you only do 5, just kind of one image.
I'll do basically, usually what I do is I'll pick about 10 images and hit the auto collage, and it ends up being 4 or 5 rows.
Got it. Totally makes sense. Cool. So, and the other couple products? I mean, honestly, part of it is, I know we're a little over time, but, and guys, you guys need to hear this. The reason I'm bringing this up is this is not infomercial time. This is like, if these are felt needs that you have, and this can translate, like I use this program called, and a lot of people use it now, called Text Expander, which is this kind of like a couple keystrokes, and you're able to expand. Instead of doing signatures in an email, you can create tons of text that you have to reproduce over and over and over again. And it's a global app within Mac, so that you can drop it into a web form or an email or any context you're in. And they have a little stat button in this software. It says how much time you've saved. And it's fun. I'm going to pull it up right now. And according to Text Expander stats, since I put it on this single computer, I've expanded 3,716 snippets, which is one kind of click, which is, I've saved 548,870 characters typed, which is the equivalent of 48.74 hours if I type perfectly at 40 words per minute. So that same concept, when I show this to people,
that's a full week's vacation.
That's a week. I'm at the end of my life. Like, I just dropped my kids off at camp, and I go to the end of my life, and I go, okay, I have one more week with my family before they go to college or whatever. Yeah. Am I going to go, I'm so glad I spent that time typing, compared to having a chance to like reclaim that time. And I look at that and I go, that's real. And in the same way, all these automation tools that you've described, this isn't just like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I had this? This is like a pragmatic reality that if you don't take advantage of automation, how in the world are you going to pull off even a single business, let alone the complexities of being, operations and marketing and the shooter and all of that. So just hear this at home, guys. I asked Andrew on here to talk about these products. That's why he's here. So tell me more about the other products.
But that's important. So when we first came out with Album Builder version 1, the big thing was, I'm designing an album in 2 hours, which was huge.
Yeah.
People were spending 4 or 5 hours designing albums, which is huge. Now people, on average, when they click through with the new version, are spending 25 to 30 minutes on an album. So let's just do 2 hours to an hour and a half. If you have 30 weddings a year, right, that's 40 plus hours a week. So, it is real and it is important. And, I'll be the first one to admit there are a ton of free album design programs out there.
Yeah.
But if you can save 40 hours how much is 40 hours? How much is a week of your
life?
Well, even if you paid yourself $25 an hour, how much is a week?
Right.
That's a lot of money. That's $1,000. Right. So that's important. And that kind of gets us down to our last program, well, there's two more, but one of our last programs is a batch editor. I bring every image that goes into print, I bring into Photoshop for a little retouching, right? So batch editor, you can, grab your images that need to be edited. You hit go, the first one opens, and then you can access all of your actions, plugins, etc. from in there, or you can create a mix. Right, so my black and white mix, I know I'm going to run this action. I throw on a texture at a really low percentage, and then I want to pop open portraiture to retouch the skin. Well, I can set that up as a mix, and I just click one button, and it does all that for me.
I love that, because what it promotes is not just press a button and it all goes perfect, but also look, you're customizing these sets that are around your particular aesthetic, understanding the tools more in depth, but really leveraging them as a creative, not just a button presser. And
exactly, and you're setting up mixes, and one of our core beliefs is to be friendly with everybody else. So it works with all of your actions. It works with Rad Labs. It works with Nik software, On1 software.
Well, that's especially cool. So it's not just actions; it's also filter sets and scripts and full
textures.
I mean, that's pretty powerful, man. Because it's funny. I love Nik, but Nik is irritating because it takes so long to to open and run compared to the other parts of the workflow.
So that's and I think that's the key. We all have to set ourselves apart with our imagery, and part of that is how we edited our images. But that can take a really long time.
Yeah.
And that's just if you can. If 10 images, editing 10 images usually takes 30 to 40 minutes, if you can bump that down to 10 or 15 minutes, again,
huge difference maker. Yeah.
And then Action Hub.
Yeah, talk about that.
Actually, we're rewriting it to be called Auto Batch because it's kind of evolved into something else. But same principle, but you can do it in a batch. So I use it for proofing. I'm like, I select these 10 images. I want them to be this black and white action, and then these images is this color action, this black and white action, and then you hit go, and it does it all automatically. So it's for the quick and dirty.
And do you find that's more efficient than just like the sync function in Lightroom, if you're using presets and that sort of thing?
And that's the thing, that if you're using Lightroom, that does. I prefer the look I can get on my images in Photoshop. I feel that they're complex and have more depth.
Yep.
And so that's my thing. Especially if you can throw in. I'm not a big fan of overly done textures, but textures at 20 to 30% can add a depth that you can't even see a texture was applied.
Right.
But it gives almost a film quality to it sometimes.
Yeah. Especially if you're nuanced with it. I think you're right. Well, dude, thank you for being on this deal. I do want to mention at home, if any of these are attractive to you guys, Andrew was gracious enough. Apparently, if you type in the words Sanders August 20, all one word, all lowercase, SANDERS AUGUST 20, all lowercase, all one word, until August 20th, they get 20% off. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on the replay and it's really late and you missed on it, bummer. But I think if you write Andrew an email, he might take care of you. But who knows if that'll happen? I don't know. That'll be between you and him. The only guarantee is if you take advantage of it now. And honestly, my encouragement is don't feel the need to get everything. Do feel the need to pay attention to where your pain points are in your workflow and get the tool that's required to get the job done more efficiently. And if that's you, if it's just blog collage, get blog collage. If it's album builder, because you're coming into album season now in the heels of a long summer, don't kill yourself. Enjoy Christmas, and somehow get through it. And if that's your value, do that. So that's my encouragement for you guys at home. Any final words? Because one of the things that I'm always interested in asking, and the way I usually frame it, Andrew, is I'll say, like, if you're talking to someone who is either just starting out and you're like, what do you do in your first 90 days, or kind of one of these generic, like, give kind of a final word. But I'd love it because you've had a lot of context. You've seen our industry from multiple angles over a long period of time, both as a shooter, both as a vendor, both as internationally, overseas, and domestically here in the United States, North America. As you take account for the trends and the way our industry is going, and we didn't even get into the fragmentation of the industry and all the pre-conversation that I might actually just have you back again because I want to talk about this stuff. given the context that we're in today, what input do you give the practicing photographer? Like, is there any piece of advice that you go, man, this is new, and if as you are running your own business, this is something that's on your mind as you are making decisions?
So how to improve your business, basically, or how to
business and creativity. Like, I guess, and maybe that's the two questions. If you want the creativity part, I feel like that's going to be more of a universal. Like, if you want to create, well, go out and create. That's my default answer. But given, especially around the moment we're in history and where our industry's at, what should people be paying attention to flourish in this era?
Well, I think, and people talk about getting back to the fragmentation of our industry and just the how many, just the influx of photographers and how much harder it is to get clients. That's not only in our industry; it's everywhere. So, for example, just walk through downtown Portland. There's a coffee shop on every corner, or massage therapists. Every industry is saturated. And every industry is saturated. And I think the key is I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Start with why, right.
And so really figure out why you're in the business and who you are. And I think that the true key, and especially for small businesses, is really figuring out who you are and why you're in business, and kind of merging that personal persona with that business persona. And finding your niche. The days of being able to shoot everything in a generic way and have a successful business, those days are over.
Yeah, they are historic. You're right.
So, but that said, I think don't get overly in love with the new economy and how new things are done. Study business, even old school business. There are people down the street, that own these, supposedly old school businesses that are making a whole lot more money than we are. So don't forget to pay attention to the fundamental old school business rules too.
Yeah. It's really interesting you say that. Offline, you and I were talking about Seth Godin and how he's had an influence on both of us in different ways, and it's the more I'm paying attention to that core of what he's saying. Is he's really just saying, look, our times have changed in that there's scalable messaging, and there has to be integrity in marketing because now everyone can find out about you, and you need to get permission rather than just spam people. And beyond all of that kind of current data, he just seems to very consistently be saying, like, you need to be the best in the world at something. And,
exactly.
And the best in the world, that hasn't changed. Like, the best in the world, if you were in the Olympics in 1948, is the same as the best in the world in 2012. It's just you have to be the best in this world currently. And exactly. And putting one foot in front of the other. The
great thing about photography, for example, like software, album design software, we have to be the best in the world literally. Yeah. Because it's a digital marketplace. But if you're a portrait photographer, you only have to be the best in your town. In somebody's world, right? And not even that. You don't even have to be the best portrait photographer. You have to be the best portrait photographer in the way that you shoot. Yeah. And you communicate that. So, the more you scale down, the more specific you get, actually the easier it becomes. Yeah, man. Dude, thank you so much for being here. Really, I've just been enjoying our conversations as we've gotten to know each other this last couple of years, and I'm looking forward to more of it. And if you're at home, do take advantage. If you want to get to know Andrew a little bit better, don't ask him tech support questions on Facebook at 11:30 at night, but do follow him on the Twitter. What's your Twitter handle? It's FundySOS. FundySOS, and then I'd encourage you to poke around. I know one of the fun things about my I'm a relationally driven guy, Andrew, and when I was introduced to you first by Jim Garner and then by association with Jerry and Tamara, and as we've started to get to know each other, I'm just really, oftentimes the people you surround yourself are the people you're known by, and you're just a great contributor to that, and I'm just so glad that you're a part of what you're doing in this industry. It's making a big difference. Thank you. All right. No, it was a pleasure being here. All right. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next week, and thanks again, Andrew. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.